yor seen cumbukaay tur day uyu borom jasna pire soo ko bëggee fii si biir Gambia bi dawal foofu sa quality jasna your number one stop shop. Ana sama jigéen ñi dama bëgg ngeen jox ma seen nopp garme yi ndaxte quality jasna amal nañ leen ay til yu toj daala poos abaaya yu yiiw waaye it amal nañ leen ay boreda yu rafet boreda yoo xam ne pour góor ñi la ak pour jigéen ñi amal nañ leen body scrub yi nga xam ne nii dafay defar seen yaram bam nice waaye it fàttewuñ fa diw yi. Ana sama jeeg yu pare yi quality jasna amal nañ leen fa andi cuuraay yu neex house spray ak bépp xeetu baax pour seen biir néeg dama ne atum ren jii ku sa jëkkër mere ku ne yow la neex ndaxte quality jasna ñëw na si dëkk bi pour defar sëy yi. Makeup artist yi bàyyi leen gannaaw ñu ngi leen fa amal ay makeup product yu quality waxu leen léegi nii foofu sa Westfield jàkkaarloog monument bi wala nga jokkoo quality jasna si 250 01 24 ak quality jasna taaral sa bopp taaral sa néeg waaye dëggal sa alaaji aas.
Let me begin by recognizing the presence and participation of honorable ministers of finance and economy.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister of Information and Communication, Gambia. Thank you, Honorable Minister of Infrastructure, Permanent Secretary, Minister of Finance, and Permanent Secretary, Minister of Infrastructure, and media houses, the fourth estate, all other protocols duly and respectively observed. It is our pleasure, and we thank you all for coming to this press conference to help shed light on the recently announced engagement of Africa 50 in the asset recycling program of the Senegambia Bridge. We are very impressed with the level of public participation and the concerns and opinions shared. And as a responsible government, we deem it necessary to call this press conference to shed additional light and information in order to make clarification. As you know, it's a national development process and there is no copyright to it. Opinion and contribution can come from corners with this aspect, and we warmly welcome that. In a nutshell, we would say the discussion has really been very animated, and it came on the backdrop of an interview I granted in Togo, attending the shareholders meeting of Africa 50, on the sidelines of which we signed 2 agreements. And the interview was conducted by the CNBC network. I wasn't even expecting you to be that one because they just called me in the corner and I gave the interview there. But the signature was a public ceremony, and we signed 2 agreements. One was the joint development agreement. You know, you have the transaction we have embarked on is an asset recycling. And asset recycling is a financial instrument or financial terminology or arrangement that we go into for cash flow producing assets, which are producing predictable and reliable cash flows. And as such, instead of waiting for long years to be receiving the cash flows in drips, you take the monetized value or significant amount of it upfront from the investors. It's in other words, a form of asset-backed security, which is called securitization. In the layman term, it means you have right to the cash flows. But instead of waiting for a foreseeable future, you have investors who are prepared to pay you today, in today's money terms, and they will be patient enough to wait to be collecting this stream of cash flows in the future. That is the securitization of the. And one thing we will say, we have to make a lot of distinction here. One, asset recycling is not the following. It's not a privatization. Privatization is an interaction where government sell its shares or ownership rights and title in an entity to a party outside government. And two, it is not a sale, because in a sale transaction, the number one criteria is title will change. Like there will be a consideration that you will receive as a seller, and the buyer will get title. And it's not a mortgage, because the one important difference between a mortgage and a securitization is in a mortgage, at the end of the mortgage life, the asset is yours as the buyer, as the mortgage, as the one who benefits from the mortgage transaction. As the institution who is going into that, you technically sell, but then you will hold on to the title. But the title will be name of the tenant or the landowner, and the title will pass at the end of the mortgage term. So the very important distinction is we are not doing anything like that. This is a nationally strategic and significant asset, and there is no way the government will undertake a process to sell a strategic asset like this. And for background information, this bridge was built by the African Development Bank. And the counterpart we are dealing with, which is Africa 50, is an entity or subsidiary of the African Development Bank. It's the infrastructure arm of African Development Bank. We are not dealing with a private company who may be driven by a private motive. We are dealing with a development partner, just like we deal with the European Investment Bank, the World Bank, the IDB, and other development partners. These are partners in development, and their focus is on infrastructure. Africa 50 is owned by 31 shareholders. The largest shareholder is the African Development Bank, and the chairman of the board of directors of Africa 50 is the president of the African Development Bank. Then the other 30 shareholders are African countries, of which Gambia is a member. So we are going to an institution which is an international institution who are development partners, and that's why we have chosen them, because they are the infrastructure arm of the development bank. So in terms of opening up to tender, procurement procedure, conflict of interest, we are dealing with a development partner. And that is very, very reassuring. And this was, in fact, that's why the signature was done on the sideline for the annual shareholders meeting, to which I was invited as a governor of the institution. So Gambia is a bona fide member of this institution. So that is very important. I will emphasize the transaction we are embarking on. It's not a sale transaction. It's not a mortgage transaction. It's not a privatization transaction. It is simply a monetization of the rights, because an asset has two characteristics. You have outright ownership, and then you have the rights accruing to that ownership. So we are separating that, and we are only selling forward the rights to the cash flows, which is in the form of tolls emanating from the bridge. I want to, if any journalist believe a financial terminology or a language is used which is not clear, I would very much welcome request for clarification. But sometimes you cannot avoid calling them what they are. I'm just trying to emphasize that. So when I say monetization, I don't mean to use a high-sounding word, but in the layman terms, you are now transferring into cash, your future cash flow. To, like, for example, we are collecting revenue from the bridge every day. But when you monetize that, it is that right who will now collect that revenue that you are giving to Africa 50, which is an international organization, and they will be the one to collect. And there are terms and conditions. What we have signed is not even. So the asset recycling we are using is a joint development agreement, which is a joint venture. It's not an asset recycling where we say you have rights to these assets and then we are hands off until when the asset come back to us. No. We are shareholders with Africa 50 in a special purpose vehicle which will have the rights to those cash flows. And the arrangement is that Africa 50, being the key financier, bringing money to the table of the proceeds, which is $100 million, will get 87% shareholding in the special purpose vehicle. And as the government of the Gambia, which is going to be represented by the government of the Gambia in the board and all the governance structure, the government of the Gambia will get 12.5% shares. Those shares we have not paid for. Those shares accrue to us because of the rights we've given them, in addition to the money that they are going to pay off. Normally, when you do this type of transaction at an arm's length, you would have to pay for your entitlement to those shares. But these are bonus shares that they have to give to us. So that is the nature of the transaction. And the second agreement we have signed is the heads of terms. Heads of terms in the layman terminology is like an MOU. An MOU in the sense that we are saying when we go to conceiving the concession proper, these are the broad outlines that the concession agreement will cover. The concession agreement will cover operation and maintenance, environmental, social, and governance issues, fiduciary issues, the welfare of the infrastructure, because the existing toll as it happens will be totally revamped. There will be a better toll system that will be developed in order to ensure there will be one, transparency of revenue collection and reporting. And government being at the center, at the table, will not in any way not be aware of what is going on, because we will be in the board, but the management and operation will be delegated. And I will also hasten to respond to some of the concerns we have received. That is, procedurally, why have the National Assembly not ratified this or given us approval? No. The National Assembly in the process has the legislative and oversight role over the executive. There is no legal or financing agreement that you will first go as a Minister of Finance before the National Assembly to say, I'm going to do this transaction, can you allow me before I do it? The Public Finance Act, which empowers the Minister of Finance, gives the Minister of Finance the right and the legal authority to engage and sign on behalf of the government of the Gambia any financing agreement. But what we have even signed is not yet a financing agreement, because there is no obligation for the state to pay the proceeds of this directly from the Consolidated Revenue Fund, where it will serve as a loan, and this loan will be serviced periodically. No. How this 100 million will be paid back to the investors is that the cash flows that will be collected as toll revenues will be used primarily to settle those financial obligations. One, any residual profit will go as a dividend distribution, which will be shared between the government of the Gambia and Africa 50. Third, this special purpose vehicle is not a foreign company. It's going to be a Gambian domicile company. So we are not dealing with a foreign company here. All the operations and the laws governing this agreement will be the laws of the Gambia. As such, it will pay taxes on its operations. So we have basically three streams of cash flows. One, the upfront cash we are going to get. Two, the dividend as shareholder. And three, taxation arising from their operations. So these are some of the things. I know a lot of questions will come, but I believe we should set this out. People quoted the Constitution as saying it's a violation. Not as a finance minister, you sign an agreement without consulting the National Assembly. I have, in my short term as a finance minister, I have signed more than 5 agreements. And in none of those agreements have the National Assembly given me the prior approval to say, go ahead and sign. The process of, you will only go to the National Assembly on 2 conditions: that there is a future obligation, that is a loan, and that the executive has cleared it and submitted to the National Assembly for ratification. And normally in the financing term, even your partner will put it as a condition of effectiveness that this loan or financing facility will not come into force without the ratification of the National Assembly. So these are some of the clarifications, I hope. But I really welcome the comments, and my colleague minister will proceed on some of the details. Honorable Minister, please.
Thanks for that detailed technical explanation on the financing agreements and also the technical specificities of the facility that we've just signed with the Africa 50. Just for some operational issues, because I have also seen this trending, and I was also contacted regarding the fate of the current staff. And I think this is also very critical that we clarify this. Currently, all the staff that are at the Senegambia bridge actually are on the payroll of the government of the Gambia under the Accountant General's Department. Now, if Africa 50 takes over, and assuming that they want to proceed with a certain number of staff, of course, as a government, we have to look at the technical capacity of the existing staff. And if an assessment is done and they are actually fit to be employed, of course, I mean, they will be absorbed. If not, then, they are already permanent staff of the Accountant General's Department, so there is no loss in terms of employment. I have also been contacted regarding the consultations. What I can assure you is that the Africa 50 and the government of the Gambia has been in direct discussions for almost a year now, isn't it? And all the critical stakeholders within the sector, like the Transport Union, the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Transport Works and Infrastructure, and also other beneficiaries within the sector, like the Gambia Ports Authority, the Gambia Ferry Services, have all been widely consulted, and proper data was duly collected during this time of consultation. You'll be surprised. I mean, at some stages of the Africa 50 and my staff, the technical staff of my ministry, were stationed at the bridge for almost 2 or 3 days to look at the operations, to look at what could be done better, to look at how we could properly, and efficiently, manage this bridge. We've also visited other important assets of, within the control of the government, like the Basse Bridge and also the Fatoto Bridge. So this process, was subjected to a very thorough, rigorous consultation, and the result is what we have seen. And quite apart from what we have done in Togo with the signing, the Gambia was highly hailed by other African countries, and we were told that immediately after the finance minister signed this with the president of the African Development Bank, other countries also came in because they have seen the benefit of this. I mean, we have all seen how we were struggling at the Senegambia bridge. When I was appointed, myself and the minister, Honorable Minister of Finance, when we were all appointed to our respective current positions, we looked at the issue of infrastructure, financing, and we look at how much is available to us as a country, the constraint this is placed on the budget. And we've decided to go on a tour of the country to look at our facilities. When we went to Senegambia Bridge, I think at that time the collection, the highest was between 14 and 18 million dollars. And we immediately instructed that the automation systems should be put in place, the CCTV should be operational, and also the barrier should also be installed. And that month, I think we collected about $49 million, $45 million. And then since then, it has always been between 30 and 40. So you could see, the improvement it generated. But when we went into the specificities as to what we needed to do to ensure efficient management but also collection at the bridge. We realized that some of these things are not the core competence of the government. So it culminated in a series of discussions to the point of the Africa 50. And the Africa 50, as also explained well by the Honorable Minister of Finance, is a subsidiary arm of the Africa Development Bank that actually sponsored the construction of this bridge. So therefore, working within that circle brings in two benefits. One, the same people that we have been working with and are familiar with the financing terms of the bridge also give us the opportunity to work with a subsidiary arm of their company, which is the Africa 50, which of course they are one of the major shareholders, to ensure that there is continuity. Secondly, there is going to be capacity improvement and building of the local staff, because I think we need to also, break down, this issue of 25 years. I think, as always the case, sometimes we react because we read and we don't understand. In most cases, we don't listen to react. We react because we have read something and we don't understand. If you look at the catchphrases here, it's either or, which means that we can be with the Africa 20 for 25 years if we are not able to, realize the RRI, sorry. Now, if we are able to do that even within 3-4 years, the asset returns back to the state. It still remains our asset, but the management returns back to the state. So these are the things that need to be understood clearly. It is surprising that we have seen all over that some people, maybe for political reasons, are saying that the bridge was sold, that it is a bad deal. But I want to believe that most of the initial reactions were as a result of a lack of proper understanding of the terms and also the process. But I guess following the interview that the finance minister did on West Coffee Time with Peter Gomez and myself, I think a lot of clarity came up. But still, we thought it necessary that we need to engage the media to bring in further clarification on some of the concepts that are still misunderstood, so that everybody will know that the bridge is still 100% owned by the government of the Gambia. The bridge is not mortgaged. The bridge is not sold. It is only the management. And here also you have to remember, managing the bridge does not necessarily mean that you are only collecting. Whatever happens with infrastructure, they will have to maintain it, they will have to do the maintenance, and they have to return to us how they receive it from us. So this is very critical. You've all seen some 2 months ago when there was an accident at the Senegambia bridge, when a truck fell, on the bridge, and then it blocked access on either side. It took us nearly 6 hours to remove that truck because we don't have the removal machinery and equipment to swiftly react to some of those things. So one of the good things about this agreement is that Africa 50 will bring in its capacity and experience in ensuring that in case there are problems on the bridge or accidents of that nature, as we have seen happen 2-3 months ago, they will swiftly react and will not affect the flow of traffic, because any impact on the flow of traffic will also affect the revenue flow. So those things are taken care of. And I think this is a great opportunity because you remember in 1993, a very similar but slightly different transaction happened here with the Gambia Groundnut Corporation when Alimenta was brought in to take over the management but also the operations of the GGC. At that time, government kind of gave up on the operations and also management. But the good thing about this other one is that the private sector is partnering with the government, and government has set up an SPV with the private sector to run the bridge and also share profit. So this is a very innovative model, and if it succeeds and works well, it can be replicated in other sectors, and other African countries are also catching up with the Gambia on this very innovative model. Thank you.
I think
A national decision, and any future agreement that we may have with Africa 50 will of course have to take into account the right of the government to determine crossing fees and tariffs at the Senegambia bridge. Remember also, I mean, under the financing agreement of the Senegambia bridge, we do have what we call a consultative forum with our immediate neighbor, especially the transporters, the union that mainly uses the bridge. So that also is critical in determining, I mean, the price factor of using the bridge. So it is not going to be like a situation where the concessionaire just gets up and then increase the tariff. No, that is a nationally determined factor that we will have to put in the concession agreement.
okay. Yes. 5 years, but we are not only going to be bound by that limit. We have a target IRR. The investors have, by investing in this asset, a target expected return of IRR of 15%, which when realized, in the event that is realized sooner, the right to the asset will flow back to the state. For example, we are dealing with a lot of unknowns. Maybe the traffic volume could shoot up to twice the current level. That will mean more revenue. We do not want a situation whereby the concessionaire will be proportionately rewarded than the risk he's taking because we say 25 years. No. If the traffic volume shoot up to the point that we have more revenue collected and the IRR will be computed, and upon computation is found to be materialized at 15%, let's say in year 7, then all the more the asset will revert back to the state. In the event that that is not possible and the projection or the traffic slow down, then it will go linearly until the cessation of the 25-year period. So it depends on the earlier of any of these two. If the IRR is realized earlier, then it will fall back to the state earlier. If it is not, then the terminal period is 25 years. And that the beauty of this is the asset life is more than 50 years of construction. Yes. As such, there is ample opportunity for the state to benefit from additional future returns, even after the expiration of this concession. Thank you. And in fact, it's one of the central pillars in any asset recycling, because you are going to have access to large cash flows. So there'll be a governance architecture. The governance architecture, the number one criteria is it will not go towards recurrent expenditure. It is from infrastructure, and we are saying infrastructure recycling, asset recycling. So the only venue is to invest in infrastructure. That infrastructure could be roads, could be buildings, could be power stations, could be hospitals, but definitely not anything but through infrastructure. And ideally, the best candidates will be those infrastructure that are revenue generating, because that way we'll have a flywheel. By flywheel, we already getting this, now we're getting another one from which no debt or national resources were deployed upfront. It is no consolidated revenue funds were deployed. So what it will mean, it will give the breathing space for the national budget to cater for other social intervention, such as the health education. Because don't forget, imagine we don't have this. Infrastructure development is key. We will still take from the same pot and invest in infrastructure. But if this comes, then that will give the breathing space for the fiscal space to invest in the vital social sectors. And there will be a governance oversight. Of course. That's very key, because don't forget, there is a reputational risk to both the government and Africa 50. Suppose we do this, at the end of the day, people cannot see results. We are not doing this for ourselves as government, we are doing it for the people. At the end of the day, the benefit must be witnessed. The benefit must be felt. And don't forget, if we suppose we don't do this, there is in any development financial intervention, that's what they call post-implementation, post-evaluation, re-evaluation, post-evaluation. At the end of this, if this project is consummated, Africa 50's governance requires that Office of Independent Evaluation will look, how did Africa 50 intervention actually benefited the lives or the country of Gambia? It will never be a situation whereby Africa 50 will come in, because don't forget, as a development financial institution, Office of the Independent Evaluation is always independent of the management. They will independently look at all these donor funds. That's why you'll see some of the projects take time, because project affected persons' rights have to be protected. At the end of the day, those task managers who actually bankroll the project are out after implementation, and the Office of the Post Evaluation will come and evaluate how did the intervention of Africa 50 in this asset recycling benefited the Gambia. This is how development financing works. On the other hand, if it is a private operator, well, they're only after the returns. Africa 50 is not a private operation. It's as good as any international organization. In fact, it is an international organization. Gambia is a shareholder. So we are privileged to be able to have this transaction consummated with them. But be rest assured, and we assure every Gambian that the proceeds, the outcome of this project is only expected to be positive. Thank you. Did that. You did the back of the envelope calculation. That is very nice. Unfortunately, you miss out one point. 25, even $500 is 2 years down the line is not the same as $500 today. In financial terms, this is what they call discounting. When you are expecting future cash flows, so you said 150 when you multiply linearly. That 150, when you discount to present value, this is a financial transaction, and it has to be looked upon as a financial transaction. It is not that you compare $150 that will be accrued over 25 years to today 100. No, you have to discount it using the discount rate, which when you do, you will find out that the 100 million that we've quoted is a reasonable number. That's what they call time value of money. A bird in hand is worth two in the bush. That's the layman way of saying it. $100 today is present value. $100 5 years down the road is not the same. To a layman, it's still 100, but no. In financial terms, there's inflation, there's discounting. So what you do when you are looking at the financial cash flows over time, you discount them. You know, in fact, what this model did is for each year, they look at the projected traffic income. They look at the operating costs. Then the net cash flow, which will be generated as a result of that. Yeah. And a discount rate was applied annually over the period of 25 years. So this has been well tested. So it's not like you compare because 500 times 300, 150. But I understand. I think it's a very useful question. And I appreciate it because this is about financial literacy. Some people, a layman time, $100 is $100. No. Unfortunately, even let me give you one simple example. 5 years ago, you can buy a plot of land here, let's say 200,000. Today, the same plot will cost you far more than that. So you could not, if you were 5 years back, you could not have compared them. That's what they call time value of money. So the rest, I will leave my colleague.
Yeah, Honorable Minister, even assuming that we go by his simplistic explanation, the catchphrase in the MOU is not yet an agreement. In the MOU, is that if we are able to go by the current rate and we are not able to realize, the rate of return, then it goes to 25 years. But as you calculated, if we are going by that, then if we realize the return, then it comes back to the government before the 25 years. So that actually is the explanation. The 25 years is just a projected, realistic calculation, maximum. But we believe if it is efficiently managed, with the O&M also included the operations and maintenance, because remember, they'll be responsible for that. They'll be responsible for the maintenance of the bridge. They'll be responsible for everything that happens in that bridge, and then they have to make sure that they take care of everything, including the payment of the staff that they will employ, the operation cost. So assuming that all those things put together minus the operating cost, and we're able to realize this, even say 5 years, of course, the management comes back to us. Now it gives us an opportunity again to either engage or to manage it on our own. So that is it.
Because 50, we are a shareholder of, and we are partners of, and we have adequate technicians within the ministry. I'm sure we have to, we've got people within who have the capability to assess a transaction. All these projects that are appraised, I mean, we have our own technicians who have the capability to be able to assess. But even there and then, the risks are very minimal. Because suppose we say 100 million is on the low side. If we increase it, let's say 150, the period will exceed 25 years. And the investor IRR will go up. Because in investment, the longer the tenure, the more the risk. So it is that sweet spot that have, and a modeling exercise was conducted. A model exists, which was jointly reviewed with them. And there is no, if we will be very careful, and it's still, before we finalize the concession, we will still revisit just the model, because when you do these models, they are not a one-way street. You will subject them to simulations. What if scenarios? Like one element will be the traffic. We say currently, even if you look at the revenue collection, we have not got a predictable track of record of revenue. Because as Honorable Minister said, at the beginning, before we went to the bridge, it was collecting less than 17 million a month. It was when we insisted on the tool being activated that revenue jumped from 17 to 45. And the numbers are there. We have, I think that we have explained, and there is no doubt about it. And we welcome the public. If they see anything that we are doing as a government, let them ask. Let them write to the ministry. And it is only after our failure, like for example, when we see this type of information in the news, my wonder is, where is the balanced perspective? Because somebody wrote to say, petition the minister because he violated the constitution. Or petition the minister because he misreported the debt stock at the National Assembly. And the minister is in town. The minister is in town. You should write, well, we've got, that's what journalism is all about. Yes. Well, we receive information here that you've misled the National Assembly. What is your proof? We receive information that you violated the Constitution. Did you check? These are the sections we have been told you violated. It is only after our failure to reply, or if we still reply, the reply is not sufficient, then a balanced story come out. But this is my perspective. But our doors are open. At any one time, any clarification required. In fact, when it comes to our debt bulletin is posted on the website. And in fact, on the misreporting of the debt level, they said there was a letter I have signed that indicated a different figure from what I reported to the National Assembly. What we have reported, there is a database to it. However, if what we report, somebody found a different figure, let them give. Like numbers, we can only reconcile. I think I enjoy doing my little reconciliation exercise. I'll say I have 99, you have 101. Where's the difference? Let's look at it. That is what governance is about. I think we should be trusted as a government. And our doors are open. It is only when you test can you verify. That's why we call for this press conference. Otherwise, there was no obligation on us to call for a press conference. But we believe it's in public interest. Now that interest was excited, let's come and break it down. And again, we will emphasize, If we use any terminology that's not digestible because it is financial or otherwise, even if you need it to be vernacular, I think my money is all bad. I will say. So we start ready to do so. Because
ku yor du sa xët te quality jas na ñoo yor seen cumbukaay tur day uyu borom jas na pire soo ko bëggee fii si biir Gambia bi dawal foofu sa quality jas na your number one stop shop ana sama jigéen ñi dama bëgg ngeen jox ma seen nopp garme yi ndaxte quality jas na amal nañ leen ay til yu toj daala poos abaaya yu yiiw waaye it amal nañ leen ay boreda yu rafet boreda yoo xam ne pour góor ñi la ak pour jigéen ñi amal nañ leen body scrub yi nga xam ne nii dafay defar seen yaram bam nice waaye it fàttewuñ fa diw yi ana sama jeeg yu pare yi quality jas na amal nañ leen fa andi cuuraay yu neex house spray ak bépp xeetu baax pour seen biir néeg dama ne atum ren jii ku sa jëkkër mere ku ne yow la neex ndaxte quality jas na ñëw na si dëkk bi pour defar sëy yi make-up artist yi bàyyi ngeen gannaaw ñu ngi leen fa amal ay make-up product yu quality waxu leen léegi nii foofa sa Westfield jàkkaarloog monument bi wala nga jokkoo quality jas na si 250 01 24 ak quality jas na taaral sa bopp taaral sa néeg waaye it dëggal sa alaaji aas